Hello and welcome. We are in conversation with Nandan Nilekani, Chairman of the Unique Identification Authority of India, and we are going to be talking about EKYC, a new service that the UIDAI has introduced, and try to understand what the pickup has been from the banking and other sectors that could potentially use it. Nandan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Govind.
So the EKYC is the sort of the first main or the key product to really hit the market.
Well, really the first product is online authentication.
Right.
So we provide fingerprint authentication, iris authentication, and OTP, one-time password to your mobile phone kind of authentication. But EKYC is a further service we are offering, which essentially gives know your customer details, like your name, address, and your photograph, electronically from the UID central computer to the computer of the other side, which could be a bank or any other authorized person.
So is it actually sharing information?
It is, but only with resident consent. So the resident goes to a bank branch, he wants to open a bank account. He does an Adhaar authentication, so that confirms that he is the same person. Then he says, I hereby authorize UIDAI to release my details to the bank.
But this is demographic details?
No, yeah. It's not, there's no biometric, there's a photograph, but there's a photograph, name and address. And that goes automatically from the computer of the UID to the computer of the bank. And that is sent digitally signed, encrypted, non-repudiatable. So it's a very good audit trail of you have a clear trail that this request happened and the request was met.
Right. So what's the problem that this was trying to solve and what will it solve?
No, it solves a huge problem because, many products, especially in the financial sector, to open a bank account, to buy an insurance policy or get a pension or buy a mutual fund or even to get a mobile phone, all of them have a know your customer process.
Right.
Now, first of all, for people who don't have ID documents, they can't even buy these products, which is one of the reasons why we have exclusion. But even when you have IDs, it's a cumbersome process, paper-based, you submit the paper, it gets filed, this, that. Here we have something which is electronic, paperless, instant, and available to anyone with an Aadhaar number. So it's a dramatic reduction in transaction cost and onboarding of customers onto these platforms.
Right. So who are all the potential application users and who can actually start experiencing?
Really the sky is the limit, but initially the Department of Revenue has said that EKYC is okay under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act because it meets all the requirements under the IT Act. And then the RBI a couple of weeks back has said EKYC can be used for bank accounts. And we're hoping that in the next few weeks, the other regulators will also take a view on this and go ahead. So a huge possible user of this is going to be the banking system to open bank accounts. But it could be used by insurance agents to sell policies. It could be used by micro mutual funds, pension products. So I think there's a lot of demand. It can be used, for example, as a passport KYC. So wherever you need a proof of identity, proof of address, you can use this. The other advantage of this is that because it's online, you can have an agent, say a BC in a village, he can open a bank account. So suddenly you're able to take your system and take it all the way to the people.
So let me ask you about some numbers now. How many enrolled, issued, and what's the kind of universe that's likely to potentially take up this kind of EKYC application?
Well, as of now, as of this morning, today is September 17th, we are 415 million Aadhaars issued. Our total enrollments would be crossing 500 million, but we believe that there may be some amount of duplicates in that, so we don't know what is the net that will come out of that. So that's as far as the numbers go. As far as Aadhaar-linked bank accounts go, the NPCI mapper today is at about 23-24 million. And as far as transactions go, the DBT program has done several million transactions. So that's the stats there. EKYC, it's just been launched, huge amount of interest, both from banks and non-banks. So I think EKYC will take off in the next few months. And I think banks obviously is one area, but also mobile companies, because mobile companies today have to fill up a CAF form and then they have to make scan it and send it and document management and all that. So all that will go away. So we're hoping that once we are working with the DOT closely to come out with the EKYC for mobiles. And that's also going to be a huge possibility.
So do you anticipate any resistance from any of these potential users?
No, actually this product is very suitable because it reduces their pain point. It's less expensive. It won't cost so much. It's instant. There's no paperwork. There's no document management, storage of paper, filing. There's a clean audit trail so that you don't know. Today, if you say after 3 years you want to find out about some account opening, you have to go back and find those documents. Here it's all electronic. So it's such a better product from the existing process that I think there's absolutely no issue.
So Aadhaar was an identity, and you've talked about applications. So this the KYC is one kind of application, right?
Well, no, a KYC is a service from us.
Okay.
So other people will use this in their application. So when we use the word application, we mean applications built on top of either Aadhaar online authentication or Aadhaar EKYC.
Right. The other is, let's say, direct benefits transfer, where you're actually helping.
That's also an application.
That's also an application. Are you, with KYC, are you also now moving, let's say, from government to more the private services and in some ways to a larger world of consumers?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you look at banking, this KYC will be used by public sector banks, private sector banks, foreign banks, all the banks. Similarly, when the EKYC comes out for the telecom industry, it will be used by all the mobile operators, the bulk of whom are in the private sector. Once EKYC can even go into I mean, it's difficult to predict which all, but wherever there is a need to identify a customer, then EKYC is useful.
Right. So what's the, if you were to look back, what are the one or two things where you feel Aadhaar has sort of worked and connected with the residents that it was supposed to? And what are the areas which perhaps have not worked the way you thought it would?
Well, clearly, I think at a base level, I think more and more people are seeing the value of it, which is why we have huge numbers. And even today, we generate 1 million Aadhaars a day. So, and the demand is so much.
So you're enrolling more than 1 million?
Yeah. In fact, today we have a small enrollment backlog because the number of enrollees is more than processing, which will fix that. We are improving our throughput at the back end. So that is clear that we have won that argument. I think DBT is proving out to be very interesting because especially with LPG DBT being done by the Ministry of Petroleum, they've done an outstanding job of going to cash transfers for LPG. And that's also a very high volume activity because the ministry estimates there'll be, after you remove duplicates, ghosts and people who don't want subsidy, they'll still have 120 million customers who will want the subsidy. And subsidy is available on 9 cylinders. So, you're talking about 1 billion transactions a year, right? 108 million into 9 is almost, close to 1 billion transactions.
Which the system can handle?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's designed for millions of transactions per day.
Right.
So that should be okay.
Right. So what's the, so you said about the 2 or 3 things that have worked well. Where has it not worked? What has been your, what's the sort of pending agenda?
Well, I mean, I had actually expected the mobile KYC to take off earlier. But I think they wanted to see more penetration, and now I think they're seeing 415 million Aadhaar. So now they're comfortable that, especially in some states, right, there's very high penetration. So I think they are ready to engage. So the other thing which I hope we could have done was get some small innovative organizations develop Aadhaar apps. That hasn't really happened yet. And I think the part of the thing is for the smaller companies, just the dealing with all this new stuff, they may come later. So because ultimately we want to see government usage, corporate or large private usage, and we want to see startup and entrepreneurs using this platform.
Right. And how much of this is really reaching out to first-time users, and as in people who never had an identity and are really getting an identity for the first time? It's not an easy question to answer because some people have what you can call as a group identity. For example, one of the most popular ID documents is the ration card because ration, and now with the Food Security Act, PDS is almost ubiquitous. So what happens then, a family of 5, father, mother and 3 kids will all be on one ration card. So they have an ID, but it's part of a family ID. Now we will then take that ID and explode that into 5 IDs for each of them. So, so in some sense they had an ID but a collective ID, but now they have this ID. So last question, I mean, there's been since you mentioned food security bill and there's been a lot of discussion on that. If Aadhaar were to be potentially and effectively wired to all recipients or as many recipients, what are the kind of savings that we're looking at, or how efficient could it be? We think that it will really recover its investment, and there's a study done by NIPFP which says that if Aadhaar is just used in 2 major programs, which is the PDS and the NREGA, then in itself the reduction in
wastage and diversion will pay for this whole infrastructure. So
that is the Aadhaar infrastructure.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying what would it save on the other side in terms for the program itself?
Well, you know, all these studies have shown that in most of our public programs is anywhere 10, 20, 30% leakage. So all that will get plugged. That's one part of it. But the another part of it equally important is that once you use Aadhaar online authentication, I can make it a multi-store offering. Today, a person on the PDS can only go to one store. Yeah. With Aadhaar authentication, he can go to any store. So then we can have the bargaining power will shift to the beneficiary, because if one store gives bad service, he can go somewhere else. So the empowerment dimension is as important as the financial savings.
Right. So absolutely last question. So one dream application that you have in mind that you'd like to plug Aadhaar into?
Well, we are very keen that it be used for frictionless payments. You know, where people can send money to other people with Aadhaar numbers, and you know, really streamline payments, because you know, especially for the migrant economy today in India, is a huge challenge. We have we have literally maybe 50 to 100,000 crores of remittances from urban India to rural India. There are lots of these corridors, so they find it extremely difficult to send the money. So I think an Aadhaar-based platform can make a huge difference to them.
Right, Nandan, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thanks, Govind.